Good morning, gang. I'm here with my colleague Jeff. Greg, this is Ron Michaels in the science area. I'm going to talk to you for the next few minutes about a recap that occurred for our first presentation, some of the more important points. And we understand that many of you have not used the interim assessments in the past, so it'd be helpful to reiterate a couple of points. Next slide. What are interim assessments? They are assessment targets aligned to the Connecticut core standards using a variety of item types from across assessment targets to elicit specific skills at differing levels of difficulty. The interims are a useful way to check student progress and to gather information about learning that can alter the instruction provided. Interims offer tremendous flexibility and can be used for professional development or in a class with students in a variety of ways. Remember that although the interim assessments are non-secure items, the interim assessments themselves are non-public. These materials may be used for the purposes of training district educators or for improving teacher practice in the classroom. Teachers and administrators are encouraged to use the interims creatively, but items and scoring materials should never be sent home or posted online. If the items are released publicly, the integrity of the assessment will be compromised. All of the material that we're talking about will be reviewed. And as a reminder, there are 3 different types of Smarter Balanced ELA and mathematics interim assessments. The interim comprehensive assessments, otherwise known as ICAs, are similar to the Smarter Balanced summative assessment in length, content, and format. Each content area ICA has 2 parts, a grade level ICA and an ICA performance task. The second type of interim offered for ELA and math are the interim assessment blocks, IABs. Now we'll be referring to both of them as ICAs or IABs. The IABs are shorter assessments that concentrate on smaller sets of related concepts. Science offers only one type of interim assessments, and those are the interim assessment blocks or IABs. The Smarter Balanced ELA and mathematic interim assessments offer a focused IAB, which are blocks designed to focus on discrete bundles of content to give teachers a better understanding of students' knowledge and the academic performance, and provide teachers with precise next steps for instruction. The focused IABs measure only 1 to 3 targets. They contain 8 to 15 items. Some pre-existing IABs have been reclassified as focused IABs. However, their content has not changed. All interim assessments for ELA, math, and science are fixed form tests. That means they do not adapt based on a student's performance. This is an important point to keep in mind. The students are taking both the Smarter Balanced interim comprehensive assessment and the interim assessment blocks within a grade, because they'll see many of the same items across both tests. There is no overlap of items within the ELA and math IABs and ELA and math focused IABs. At this point, CSD does not recommend the use of ICAs as pre or post measures due to the high rate of item repetition across ICAs and IABs. The ICAs add hours to overall testing time throughout the year for students. As mentioned, this assessment mirrors the summative in length and only provides claim level scores similar to those provided in the summative reports. The NGS interim assessment system is quite different from Smarter Balanced interims. Rather than blocks, tests containing many items, each NGSS interim consists of a single item cluster. Each item cluster includes a real-world scientific phenomenon with several item interactions that focus on sense-making and problem-solving. Interactions include a variety of item types that students see on the state summative assessments. All item interactions are machine scored, as there are no open-ended written responses. Scoring assertions for each item are scored as either correct or incorrect, and the results are instantly available to educators in the CRS or centralized reporting system. There are lots of benefits for using interims. Schools have a variety of assessments available and must make sound decisions about the pros and cons of these assessments. The interim assessments provide a variety of benefits that are not necessarily available with other assessment platforms. These are short, focused assessments that provide data quickly to teachers. Given that they are not standardized, there are a variety of ways that the interim assessments can be implemented, providing flexibility that is rarely seen with standardized assessments. These assessments are not tied to a specific program or resource, but rather tied directly to the standards, providing students with exposure to the exact type of items that they will see on their summative assessments. And finally, based on the results of the math and ELA assessments, teachers can access additional supports to address the needs of their students.
All right, thank you, Ron. So the next section that we're going to look at is scoring and reporting. And we want to just review some important points about scoring and reporting for math, ELA, and science interim assessments. The only items that require hand scoring are some items on the math performance task. So this means once a student completes an interim assessment, their score and all the related information is almost immediately available. Hand scoring is for those math items in the performance task is conducted directly within the centralized reporting system. Along with links that provide teachers to the scoring rubrics and the training material. Additionally, the hand scoring materials can be accessed, downloaded, and printed from TIDE. The Smarter Balance Interim Assessments report reports the scores as below standard, at or near, or above standard. So these performance levels are based on students' performance relative to the proficiency standards for items that are linked to a specific claim. This provides teachers with useful information about students' strengths and weaknesses. The NGSS interim scores are not given as performance levels. They are raw scores and percent correct. In an effort to provide teachers with valuable information to impact student learning, you're able to access scoring assertions for each item cluster to see how the item cluster was scored. And because no hand scoring is required for the NGSS interim assessment, results for the interim assessments are available in real time in the centralized reporting system. Everything is now in the centralized reporting system as soon as the student submits the test. And teachers can view the scores for students who were included in a test session that they proctored, or for any students who are rostered to them. Raw scores and percent correct for the item cluster in an assessment are reported, but again, there's no scale scores or achievement levels for the science interim. The centralized reporting system houses all test score data, including test scores from prior years. This is important as you try to determine trends in either student or grade level strengths and weaknesses over time. The data made accessible to you is dependent on your assigned user level. And we talked about that last time. There are 3 user levels, as you can see on the screen. You have the teacher level, the school level, and the district level. Teachers are only able to access the data for any students that are associated with them either through a roster or that they've given the test to. In other words, you can't access data from a student this year if they're not in your class. So that is important to know when you're looking for students. That all students in the school require school access, and then obviously the most comprehensive level is the district administrator level. And this is just a reminder that there are videos that support your understanding of the key components of the centralized reporting system. Right now, we have 12 different videos that range anywhere from 5 minutes to 10.5 minutes long. And if you go to the link that is on this presentation slide, the video series is at the very bottom of the page, and that page has a number of other valuable resources for you. So we're going to talk about how to integrate the interims into math, ELA, and science across your practices. The interim assessments and the tools that support the use of interims, such as the assessment viewing application, which we talked about last time, tools for teachers, which you'll hear more about today, and the centralized reporting system, all support teachers in their professional development and pre-teaching activities, lessons, formative or interim assessment goals, and post-teaching follow-up. Data is an important piece of making educational decisions with the interim assessments. There's an incredible amount of data available, and what a school or teacher chooses to do with the data is really the critical part of this. The system allows for the export of student data files so that the data can be further analyzed to drive individual or group instruction, to inform curricular decisions and identify any trends. The system allows, by viewing past performance of students, a school can compare cohorts. You can look for insights into changing your pacing, your sequencing, or your lessons, and being able to review each individual item, as well as the student's response, which is really a huge strength of this system, would allow the teachers to identify any misunderstandings that a student is having and to address that misunderstanding quickly so that it doesn't continue to impact student learning. One of the pieces of the centralized reporting system is that you have the 5 items on which the student scored the best and the 5 items which the student scored the worst. And that allows you to identify quickly those problematic items and the strengths of the students without having to do that data analysis yourself. The information allows grade level teams to collaborate and to learn what's working and what might need to be addressed in a different manner. Working with data teams to review data leads to powerful results. I'm sure as many of you already know, because you're going to ask questions about what you see. What's the backstory behind the results? What lessons can be shared among teachers to promote a deeper learning or understanding? And is something that, do we need to do more planning and focused instruction in certain areas? Interim assessments, as you already know, are administered on a computer using exactly the same test delivery system as the online summative assessments, but the scope, sequence, number, and timing of the interim assessments are determined at the district level. So we are not going to tell you how and when you use those. A teacher might administer an interim assessment that's above or below the student's current grade level. An above grade level assessment might be used by a teacher to assess students who are receiving instruction with curriculum aligned to above grade level standards. A below grade level assessment might be used by a teacher who wants to assess students who are struggling with a topic or to identify areas of weakness in years before and prior learning. Since the assessment items are available through the assessment viewing application, you can also display the selected items for use as an entry or an exit ticket. You can use them to engage students in content discourse or to provide further exposure to item types. And we're really going to get into specific ideas on how you might integrate the interims into your classroom in more flexible ways. So before we start that, what we're going to try is a breakout activity. So everyone has either chosen beforehand or has been assigned a breakout room. And for the next 20 minutes, we're going to ask that you not only participate in this, but that you take notes, because like we mentioned earlier, we're using live interim items to do this activity. So you can't record this section because we have the live items. And we're going to be using data. So we've put a link in the chat. Jen just posted it again. And the first thing we'd like you to do before we start the breakout rooms is to click on that link. And if you are in science, you're going to access the science information. ELA has a folder because there are 3 documents for ELA, and math has a document there as well. So why doesn't everybody do that? And then we'll also post that link in the chat. I believe it will be available. But let's get those documents, and then we're going to have 20 minutes. We're hoping that what you'll do when we're finished with this entire presentation is have a discussion with
the chat.
The chat is up at the top. You have a little people icon and then a comment icon. It looks like a word bubble. Click on the word bubble and you'll see the link in there from Jen. Looks like a little conversation bubble.
With a picture of a little person in it?
No, there's if you scroll move your cursor over the top of the screen, you'll see a icon with 2 people that will label as show participants. And then there's a conversation icon. There's an emoji icon. It's all at the very top of your screen.
I don't have any of that, so hold on.
It might be at the bottom of your screen as well.
I
Yeah,
have
yeah.
turn camera off, mute, open share tray, raise hand, show conversation.
That's it. Click that.
Okay, I got it. Thank you.
All right. So Felicia, can you put us into our breakouts and then we'll start the 20 minutes?
Yes, ma'am.
She gave me-
By the whole and sounding familiar. What we look at is they actually give us an entire lesson that directly speaks to that particular understanding or misunderstanding in this case. And it has the attachments, it tells you what the learning goal is. I'm just kind of going through this. It gives you the PowerPoint, it gives you exit tickets, and so on. So for instance, they're doing, I'll download the presentation for you so you can see. This is the PowerPoint. You're all still seeing my screen, right?
I can just see you. Can't see anything else.
Well, that's no
Hey,
good. Who wants to see me?
Hey, Jen, I think we're back with the group now.
Oh,
I'm sorry. I think we
Let's
we
end
Yes.
on time.
we
We
were
might
near
have
the
ran out of
end.
little
We're
time.
good.
All right, so I'm going to share the rest of this presentation here. So, and I know we probably needed twice as much time in the breakout rooms, but we didn't have that. So now that we've gotten a basic idea, it was a very fast use this data from the centralized reporting system, but we wanted to at least talk to you about some ways that you could use these interim assessments in your classroom to support your practice. So the assessment viewing application. This is one of the first resources that most people go to that helps you determine if the blocks are appropriate, if they're relevant in relation to a unit that you're doing that you might incorporate in class. You can go ahead and preview the blocks and the content. And after administering a block and reviewing the results, teachers might want to use AVA to review items on which the student struggled. You can use an item to demonstrate a skill when you're actually teaching with the students. The item can be shown to everybody and the teacher can model, for example, how an introduction might be written or how a paragraph would be edited or problem solved or a science topic approached. These items are valuable for professional development. You could work through the difficult items and incorporate them into your PD to prepare for the summative assessments, to better understand the expectations, or to see how your curriculum and instruction actually aligns to what's being measured. And that will differ in math. In math, there needs to be an alignment. If you see something in a block that isn't being taught in your classroom at that grade level, then you are not aligned with the Common Core, the Connecticut Core Standards. For ELA, that's a little bit more wiggle room because it's not a set of skills. But for math, if you're seeing something in a block that you don't have in your curriculum for that grade, you need to review your curriculum. The Connecticut Core Standards note that standards leave room for educators to determine the full range of metacognitive strategies that would benefit students. So this is really important. Just because it doesn't tell you something, a skill in the standards, doesn't mean it's not something you should teach. So the interims support the teaching of skills such as note-taking, which, Katie, that would be brilliant in the listening piece. How hard is it to listen to something without taking any notes and then to be able to go back and answer questions later? Note-taking is a critical part of the learning process. It helps keep kids alert, engaged. It supports memory, it supports recall, and provides a record of your information across any content area. That's not just an ELA thing. Math, history, science, social studies. Teachers can use the informational stimuli from the reading blocks to teach note-taking. The science stimuli also. The listening stimuli are grade appropriate and complex and can be used. We have a template that we've done for those. And because the stimuli go across all content areas, it's not ELA focused. It is actually an informational text that goes across content areas. The short discussions concerning test-taking skills, super important, might include asking students why they chose an answer that they did, or even to read the STEM more closely, which is something we looked at in the listening. If it says pick two, you cannot get you don't get partial credit. You either do the full item and pick both, or you get 0. So they need to be reading the STEMs more closely. Many students don't take any time to review their responses. So teaching students to go back and check their answers before they submit is another habit that they should get in the process of doing. The idea of reviewing responses is a critical strategy in math, and so students should be reflecting on the reasonableness of their solutions. When reviewing students' responses to items, the wrong answers, as those in the math breakout saw, is sometimes more valuable than the correct answers. So you can see where students struggled and where they didn't. And the beauty of the centralized reporting system, they have a toggle feature that allows me to go down by item or across by student. So I can toggle right down the item and see how every single student answered that, which can really give me a lot of information on the 5 worst items. You can use the assessment viewing application in mathematics, for example, to select pre and post-test items, because remember, some of those blocks, you only have 1 block per grade that's going to give you the information you want. So you might, this is a math example, you might look at items in a math block and to use as a pre-test, and something like algebraic rules governing the order of operations. And before instruction, I can ask the kids to complete 2 items. And the items might ask the students to correctly interpret a mathematical expression. And then the second test, the post-test, I could pick 2 other items that have the same that measure the same concept, but in a different way, and see how the students did based on their pre and post. So, and this way I'm still using the same block. It's not a formal way to use it, but I can take a look at which students respond correctly to the items and which are still having trouble. And remember that because these are all taken, all of these items, by the way, developed with the same rigor. All the items are in the same pool. Some are sent to the summative, some are sent to the interim. So how you're preparing children for the interims, you're preparing them for the summative. A lot of these items have a very rich tier 2 and 3 vocabulary skills. We have some resources at the end that we're going to share about content relevant vocabulary for math and ELA. These are lists of out of grade level vocabulary that still are considered necessary to students because they relate to valuable content required by the standards. At each grade level, teachers should be integrating these words into their discussions and assignments so kids are familiar with them. The NGSS item specs include list of acceptable vocabulary items, terms that students should be familiar with for each performance expectation. The item specifications also include vocabulary terms that students might not be familiar with and are only included in an item if they include further explanation. And students should be given some test taking and study skills looking for these types of words. You can do short do nows, 5-minute lessons on how to look for some of these words in a test. You could also use these stimuli for annotating. There, again, they are all grade appropriate complex text. I could look at different text across grade levels. I could look at text across content areas and look at main idea or supporting details or how to circle unknown words or descriptive language or noting questions. You could use the audio text to as a starting point for some other study. So I could use the audio stimuli to identify a relevant audio topic to present to my class. And then based on the listening audio, I could facilitate a conversation or activities from that and then branch out. Kids that found a certain topic interesting, maybe cranberries, you don't know. They could find that topic interesting and then they could do more research on it. You could have conversation about the topic, but not use the same items, but not offer the options so that you're simply using the STEM as a starter. And if, as my group saw, you can use by using the interim item assessment portal in Tools for Teachers, you can actually get the stimuli typed out for a transcript of the stimuli for listening. You could, for literary and informational stimuli, you can use those as a mini lesson or a mini check to teach a specific skill. You could use these to model how to analyze within or across text. You could to model using text evidence to support inferences or conclusions. In some examples, teachers can use these stimuli to teach skills beyond those that are measured by the block. Inferences related to the author's purpose, use of language, text structure, and so on. The brief rights are absolutely perfect in supporting teaching of writing. You can display an item and ask students to do elaboration on existing stimuli, incorporate dialogue, details, develop characters, beginnings or endings, and you can do this as a small group and then have everybody share out how their new and improved story. You could use the practice and training tests to work with students so that They are familiar with the system, the functions, the item types. This isn't really meant for instruction, but these could be used for test taking skills. The practice tests have a little bit more information and are a little bit longer. The training tests are really to teach you how to take the test and the items. And lastly, we have our next steps. So over these last 2 sessions, we've provided you with a great deal of information, and it's time now for you guys to plan how you're going to take this information and implement it in your own school. So we've given you recommendations that will help you begin this process. And because the breakout rooms were not recorded, you might want to share some of the discussion, even though it was fast, with your colleagues, or try and do that discussion with your colleagues. Take some time to go through Tools for Teachers, valuable resources in there. If you haven't used the interims, you'll want to go into the assessment viewing application, take a look at what's there. Does it align to your curriculum? Are there blocks or items that you could use? And then you're going to want to develop a plan for interim use in this upcoming semester. And we've added resources. So the Smarter Balance resources, there's some interim connections playlists that are available now in the professional learning session. So if you go into Tools for Teachers, these links will work for you in the presentation, but if you open Tools for Teachers, logging in through the Connecticut portal, you'll see professional learning resources. There are a number of videos there for you. The interim assessment item portal just below that is where I can download the items for the interim to a PDF, which is what I know Math and ELA shared in our breakout rooms. This is how we managed to find those items. And the construct relevant vocabulary lists for ELA and Math are linked here. We linked the pop-up PD, which are professional learning presentations available that focus on remote learning, building community, effective instructional strategies, formative assessment. We've linked the Connecticut Learning Hub, which is a free and interactive web page of digital resources. The Connecticut Core Standards site, which also has materials for teachers, and Connecting the Claims, which Katie, I shared that with you, but I think for Math and ELA, this is a really valuable way to think about assessment and how it's integrated into your teaching. And the NGSS item specs are linked here. And we also have a link to the Connections playlist, which I gave to my group for listening. We didn't get time to go through that. But in Tools for Teachers, in that same list of instructional resources, you'll find the interim Connections playlists, and you can look for every single ELA and Math block. Those are available. These are a repeat of last presentation's resources for you. And just a reminder that the interim assessments will not be open until September 1st for you to administer them, but the other systems are available for you. And if you need to add designated and supports and accommodations, you have to do that by hand. So that is something that is available on the portal for you as well. And you have all of our contact information at the end of this. And I know that Felicia, you're going to be sharing this presentation with everyone, and we'll do it so that you have the notes and can read through it a little bit more slowly. And it will be available to you with the script, minus the presentation, minus the breakout rooms.
Also, the information for the different breakout rooms. So if you were in ELA and you're interested with the information that was shared in Math, you can email the consultant and they'll share you what they can for the specific breakout rooms.
Can you go back and to the slides where everyone's information was, contact information was? Thank you.
It's also was shared in the first presentation. All of our contact information and everything is hyperlinked. So in the first presentation, it's at the end there. All right, so I know we're over time, but if people have questions, does anyone have anything that I've missed? You're also welcome to email us if you have questions. Oh, I see Abe answered one. Okay, all right, so we don't seem to have Jen and Abe were answering questions. If anybody has other questions, you're welcome to email us, and was a lot to digest, so I apologize that we moved so quickly. And this will be sent to you in about a week or so. You should receive a link to the recording of the presentation with captioning. All right.
Thank you all for joining us.